On September 13, 2001, smoke was still rising from the ruins of the World Trade Center. New Yorkers waited and prayed to hear from loved ones, thousands of whom were lost in the towers. Spontaneous memorials sprung up throughout the city, mourning the dead and sustaining the living. And at the Interfaith Center of New York, religious leaders gathered to reflect, giving voice to the city's trauma and standing together against Islamophobia. This video includes some of the reflections shared that day. We hope you will appreciate the speakers' diverse perspectives and their common humanity.
Friends, welcome. My name is James Morton, and I'm president here of the Interfaith Center. All of our staff is here, and we're really immensely grateful for the support that's making this press conference a possibility. As you're all well aware, we have many religious traditions present in this room who will speak out of their own tradition and their own heart about what's happened in the last 2 days. The principal spotlight of the press conference, however, is on our members from the Islamic community in New York who have, with their bodies, been totally involved in this, and giving blood, and on the police department and the fire department, suffering, but who, in distinction from many other New Yorkers, have had a lot of backlash and turning against them as perpetrators, slurs, you know what happens. And so it's so important that they have an opportunity for the press to express their own hearts and the truth of the situation from their perspective.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful, I start my speech with one ayah which translates, "And kill not life that Allah has made sacred." This is the teachings of Muslims and Islam. On September 11, 2001, a tragedy has occurred. We in the Muslim community is outraged by this senseless act of violence. Our way of life, Islam, the way of peace, does not permit such unjust actions. We condemn terrorist acts against Muslims and non-Muslims alike. My dear respected brothers and sisters, let me share which happened in my home. I had a very close friend who was in World Trade Center number 1. When the first plane hit at that building, he came out and went to World Trade number 2 to another friend. And he spoke from there that I'm okay, I'm in second building. And as we know, that after a while that building was struck, and then until this point we don't have any trace of that person. Just last week, our children and we were enjoying in great adventure with that family, with that brother. But today, among others, he is also missing one of them. As all New Yorkers, all USA, everybody is feeling the pain. We also are one of them as a Muslim community. But as brother has said, there is another thing, another aspects of that. When my daughter today want to go out as usual as a Muslim lady, she is 11th grade. She was worried about her hijab. She said, I don't know if I can go that way or not. I said, don't worry, nobody will bother you. Because we are same. Muslims or non-Muslims, we are Americans. And tell them, as you are angered, same with me. I'm among you. Don't count me out. You have the same pain as I have.
What you see here this morning is really a representation of various levels of Muslim leadership from across the city. I'm also the deputy leader of a national organization and have been in touch with imams in different parts of the country. And all of us pretty much have the same concerns. At this time here in New York City, none of us have any way of knowing the identities of the victims, but we can all rest assured that when all of the victims are identified, that they will be of every racial group, every ethnic group, and of every religion. And in the weeks and the months ahead, we're all going to be reminded that we are members of a single family as we experience commonly grief and hope and anger and despair. We, the leadership of the Muslim community, we are, even as we're extending condolences on one hand, we are also counseling patience and restraint and tolerance on the other. Some time ago when Timothy McVeigh and his accomplices committed mass murder in Oklahoma City, I'm sure we all remember that the initial response was to blame the Muslims. And of course that turned out to be a false assumption or false response. Nonetheless, McVeigh, who was raised as a Roman Catholic, but when his identity was discovered, no one blamed the Catholic Church for Timothy McVeigh's sins. No one attacked Catholics. No one vilified a faith for the actions of a few. And this must be the case with Muslims and Islam. So we encourage all to seek divine help with patient perseverance and prayer, and to open our hearts mutually. And let us all pray for genuine reconciliation of human conflict through a pursuit of true justice for all people, guided by the principles that were held dear by the prophets whom we all revere. Thank you very much, and peace be unto you.
We make no apology for being Muslim. On the contrary, it is our faith that makes us human. And Islam is not a foreign entity to these shores. Muslims have been here for centuries, and that is part of our history and our legacy that has to be told and taught to our citizenry. We call upon those in authority and media professionals to exercise sound judgment and professionalism as the investigation goes forward until we reach a just and unbiased decision. We are working closely with other communities and organizations to provide humanitarian assistance to the victims and their families. We are also offering our services to government and private agencies as required. We ask Allah to grant us wisdom as we seek truth and justice for the victims and their families, as we ask for protection from the infliction of harm or injustice upon us and our families. Thank you.
I apologize for going out of turn. We are a Red Cross drop-off center at 82nd Street. I have 80 volunteers there. We've been working for the last couple of days. Interesting, as we left this morning, there were two young men from Afghanistan who were working with the crowd. So I think that we can say that we are not condemning in that wide sense. The basis of all society, of course, is justice. And we are hoping that justice is done in this sense. And if, for those who are worried, if you recall the World Trade Center, it took time and to identify, and it took time to bring to justice the few who were ultimately responsible. And so I think we can count on the government to do that. Obviously, our first thought is revenge and fear, but that's not Christian. Christianity says to us, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Obviously, that faith is tested in this particular moment. And so we are share with all of the rest of you the sense of loss. Anybody in the city has somebody. We have a number in our own parish who are involved and who are missing, waiting for that voice to be heard on the phone that's not coming. And so we join with all others in compassion to suffer with and to share with those. Paul said to the Ephesians, we can't be bitter, to wear bitterness, the outrage of passion, anger, insulting language. And the psalmist says to us, those who are, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and those who are crushed in spirit, he saves.
Good afternoon, shalom aleichem, salam aleichem, namaskar. That's the limitation of my knowledge of various languages. I want to say to all of you that I learned at a young age that in this world there are just two kinds of people, the decent and the indecent. So all of us come here today from different denominations as members of the decent who will stand up against the indecent. We're going to hear many questions asked in the next few days and weeks, but I think people are looking to all of us for simply one answer. And the answer they want to hear from all of us is that we stand together and we say no to the horror and to the hatred. So yes, we are many voices, but we also come here with one voice. Our religious traditions tell all of us that after a tragedy, religious leaders need to ask themselves this question: have we done everything humanly possible to stop the hatred that has occurred? We have a search and rescue mission in the fire department. Let me tell you, as we are here, they are working so assiduously to search, to rescue. But we also have to have a search and rescue team. We have to search our hearts. We have to search our communities so that we can rescue others from future hatred. Now, this tragedy occurred on September the 11th, so you would mark that as 9/11. 9/11 is also how you make an emergency call. So I would like to make this recommendation, that we not wait till there's a 9/11, till there's an emergency, for different peoples to come together. We can have meetings when there's 8/11 and 7/11. We should be doing this on an everyday basis. And let me say to all here, we know that when we sit down together, we are not going to see eye to eye. We know that. But one thing we have to show our young people today, and all other people, is that at least religious people can sit down heart to heart. Thank you very much.
Our heart goes out to all those who lost their lives and all the families of the bereaved, not just in New York, but all over. This is a tragedy which is beyond description of words. Everyone before me have expressed their sentiments in so many different ways. But it is so clear. It is just like so many rivers flowing into the same ocean. All of us are expressing in different words under the banner of a different faith, but yet asking for peace in this world. We pray the same Lord day in and day out, that we will hope that never to see such a massive tragedy again in our lifetime, and our generations to come must never see either. I don't think the night of 10th, when all of us slept, we ever dreamed that what we would see early morning of the 11th. It's almost as a massacre of a magnitude that is beyond description. Any faith will only say peace. No faith will say kill others. It is the interpretation of the faith, interpretation of the understanding that brings on this hatred. This is no time for hatred. This is the time to get together. This is the time for all of us belonging to different faiths to understand each other. We must love each other as brothers and sisters do. The more you understand, the more you respect, then less there is hatred.
And now, from the Buddhist perspective, one thing that I really have to say, probably from the tradition of Buddhism towards the war, I believe Buddhism is one of the religions who never really raised the war, especially, and then the no violence is the basic attitude to the towards the anything. And I believe when you look at the history of the Buddhism, really limited war involvement. And I believe one of the reasons that we could do that is how we control our anger. And in a statement of the Dhammapada, which by the Buddha, it says, in this world, the hatred has never yet dispelled hatred. It is the absence of hatred that leads us to peace. And this law is ancient and will last forever.
The Creator is one obtained by the grace of the true Guru. I'd like to reiterate the thoughts and sentiments of everyone here today when I say the Sikh community in New York, as well as throughout North America, strongly condemns these heinous acts of violence and terrorism against the people of America and the United States. The thoughts and prayers of the Sikh community are with the victims and their families here in New York and throughout really the world. Gurdwaras, which are Sikh places of devotion and learning, will be holding a special prayer session this Sunday in memory of those victims. And we would like to encourage those of all other faiths to do the same at your respective prayer ceremonies. Sikhs, who number approximately 500,000 here in America, are in a slippery situation every once in a while. Sometimes we're confused as a Hindu sect. We're facing genocide in India for our religious beliefs. And because of the photos of Osama bin Laden that have been very recklessly shown throughout all media stations, Sikhs, because we have beards and turbans and perhaps most closely resemble the photos that are being shown, are in grievous danger, both physical and emotional. Sikhs have been assaulted here in the New York area over the last 2 days. There's a gentleman who's at Jamaica Hospital who was beaten with a baseball bat right outside of Gurdwara Richmond Hill. There were 2 young Sikhs that were shot with paintball guns outside of Gurdwara here in Richmond Hill, New York. A Sikh Gurdwara in Cleveland, Ohio was almost set ablaze last night. Thankfully, that was averted. But I'm sure you can all empathize when I say that Sikhs, because of our distinctive appearance, are going to be a target of those that are looking for a venue to vent grief and who are displaying ignorance. So I'd like, and the Sikh community would like for all of us to perhaps band together and contact the media collectively and also police officials, not just for Sikhs. Hatred against anyone at this time is a horrible, horrible thing. Hatred begets hatred. Innocent victims have been killed, thousands and thousands, over this past week. And for people to start attacking innocent Arabs, innocent Muslims, innocent Sikhs, anyone that has a turban or a beard is totally inappropriate and unacceptable.
I give greetings to all of you, all of us as human families with good hearts and clean hands. I concur with the feelings of everybody here. My religious tradition from Africa, the Yoruba ethnic group, that religious tradition preserved in Cuba. I'm inspired by the teachings of our ancestors who found themselves enslaved. And learning from that atrocity of slavery in Cuba, I've written 6 questions down that I'd like us to ponder on with relationship to this heinous event. If we may contemplate on these, write down answers to them, because it's universal and has application to the world we need to build. The first question is, Olodumare is God in our language. Why did Olodumare, why did God Almighty allow this to happen? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what lessons is Olodumare, what lessons is God Almighty forcing us to learn? Question number 3. What kind of seeds were sown for us to reap such a harvest? Number 4. What goodness can come from this? Number 5. How can we turn this tragedy and loss into happiness and gain? In our tradition, we learn through trial and error and through our scriptures how to turn osobo, or the path of bad choices, into onire, the path of goodness. That's ahead of us. And number 6, are we using the power of the spoken word to its best capacity to invoke all that we want as human beings? To invoke goodness, peace, and harmony through our incantations, through our words and prayers, through the written word, through web pages, through the internet. Are we doing enough with the spoken word? So we have work to do. I ask us as a human community to let's work together. Ashe.
Well, friends, we have to go home. This has been really the most giving of hope time together. It's really been extraordinarily helpful. I love the Yoruba questions. You know, what have we really learned from this? You know, why did God do it? But what have we really learned from this? Is, you know, is tomorrow going to be different from the day before yesterday? I mean, those are the questions. And wonderful things were said here. We have so much to take home, but we also have so much really to commit ourselves to do. They're not hard things. I mean, they take everything because we have to change old bad habits. But to love someone who's different isn't really hard. You don't have to have a graduate degree to respect someone who's wearing a turban. I think I'm going to start wearing a turban. You know, we really have got to sort of do some somersaults. We've heard since we were tiny tots that we're one family, but we really haven't believed it. And that's been the blessing in disguise of the 11th. I mean, we really see that we are one family. I mean, we were all in that. There was a wonderful, my teacher at the cathedral years ago said, where was God when the bus full of children ran off the bridge into the river? Answer, in the bus. Where was God in Auschwitz? Answer, in the oven. Where was God on the 11th? Answer, in that building. With everybody. So, we have got to be with everybody, with each other, because each other is everybody.